right, good morning everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition. This is Taste Life Nutrition Radio, where we're streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. And I believe we're now hitting right around 200,000 of you amazing souls. So super grateful for that and grateful to have you with us. This is a super special show, and I'm super excited to introduce to you my cousin, Missy Star. I have your last name. There's a reason why I hesitated. It doesn't matter right now. But Missy has an amazing story, which is such a big part of why we do this show, is to bring to you people who have amazing gifts, amazing stories, really amazing. How many times can a person use amazing? I don't know. But amazing things to share and to give to the world. And that's what we're about. Is we want people, we want to share gifts, we want to share goodness, we want to share love and light and life. And I'm covering you up in one of my cameras. And we want to educate, and we want to bring the knowledge that people have to share, and that people, I think, that needs to be shared. And so, Missy, so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for asking me. I felt very privileged that you asked me to do this.
So we were actually in, Missy's in Michigan. I have all of my mom's side of the family is in Michigan, which is amazing, because when I get up there, this is a family, I don't know how many with the kids. Is it 75 people maybe?
Oh, good Lord, yeah, easy, yeah.
It's a lot of people, but it's really fun because we all get together, and I just don't get to do it as often as I would like to. But the last time we were there was because Allison, Missy's daughter, was getting married, and it was such a beautiful wedding, and it was so much fun. But we were sitting outside having a cocktail in the sun, and it was warm and cozy, and we were talking about her Missy's history, you know, some of the things that she had been through, and it just dawned on me. It's like, this is stuff that we need to talk about. This is stuff that people need to hear about, that people need to know, because there's so much to it that I think it's just a really important story to share. And it's an important story to share, I think, because, one, people can relate. Two, my hope is that it can open some eyes, and whether that's opening eyes to those who want to have the surgery, or I guess I should tell you, this is about having bariatric surgery, but opening the eyes to those who decide to go through it, and what needs to happen afterwards, and maybe what to expect and what can happen. There's so many levels to this story that you know, at the very least, let's open hearts, open minds to what can be the reality, and then what to do, the support to get prior to, the support to get afterwards. I'll tell you my own experience, besides my family, which we'll talk about, but of course is Missy and her dad, my uncle. But I've had clients who have had this surgery, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult on people, and it's not usually, you know, you have I think what's kind of a honeymoon period maybe, where you have the first few couple of years, you're losing weight and things look good and you feel good, but things just kind of go wonky, and so many things can happen. So I'm going to stop rambling. I tend to do that early on, as I ramble a little bit, but as always, we start the show with gratitude. And so, Missy, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for my entire family. They have always been my support system, and you know, my children, they're my world. So, you know, I think if I wouldn't have had them, I may have not made it through my ordeal. I may have given up.
Yeah, you've got a great husband, a couple of really fun kids, adult children, Alex and Allison, big, fun personalities, just really, really cool kiddos. So Yeah, that's it's important when you're going through a situation as you were to have support, because I can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would say I'm grateful to still have you here where you can talk about it and you can share your story because it is super impactful. I'm grateful for having a nice tan in the middle of January. We just got back from Belize and had such a great time.
You're such a, we hate you for that.
I know I did get a little bit darker of a complexion than probably most of the family up north, but it's my dad.
Yeah, I put bronzer on, and I had to do a check with Allison on FaceTime to make sure I didn't look like a copper penny, and she's like, no, you're good, and I'm like, all right, I gotta fake it here. It's February in Michigan, and I haven't gone anywhere sunny.
Well, I'll tell you, I wanted to talk a little bit about our experience because I think when you have a really good experience with really good people, it's worth sharing. And so we went to KUHS, and this is part of my gratitude. By the way, gratitude can change the world. So be grateful morning, evening. Be very intentional about being grateful because it truly can change the world and it radiates. So we went to KUHS, Belize, which is, if you don't know, it's an island in just outside of a little ways outside of Belize City. And on the south point of KUHS, which is a little more remote, a little more of a preserve area, there is a little VRBO. It's not that little, but it's called Costa Nube. And this is where we stayed with Colleen and Aldo. And of course, they had a few other guests there, but it was pretty remote. It wasn't directly on the beach, but it was more a little bit jungle. But the beach was walking distance. So they had bikes and they had paddle boards and they had the kayaks and then we went back into town. It was the most relaxing, amazing, comfortable trip that we've had, and I just want to really give a shout out to Colleen and Aldo because they made it just really spectacular and fun, and they cut a lobster up for us because it's not something that we do. I'll eat the hell out of it, but I've never cut one up before. We just had such a great time, and I will never get a fill of seafood, but I certainly ate my fill of seafood and ceviche. It was pretty awesome sauce. So thanks again to Colleen and Aldo. It was a really special trip. Good 9 days. So it was super special. So let's get into the meat of what we're here to talk about. Missy, I don't really have like a starting place. I kind of feel like I want to let you just, give a little bit of your history and whatever it is that you want to share to set the table for what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Back about 2006, now you're going to have to forgive me on some of these dates because it's been a while. Some of the stuff that's happened in the span of time has affected my memory a little, and I will tell you why that is as well. I know you know, but I will share. About 2006, my dad had his physician say that he wanted him to have gastric bypass. He was having some heart issues. He'd always kind of had heart issues since when I was growing up. And we're all good size, and we wrestle with weight loss. So when he was going to do it, I decided that it may be something I would like to look into if my health insurance was going to cover it, and found it was surprisingly easy for me to get it. I don't know if it was the difference in insurance coverages between my dad and I, but somehow I ended up leapfrogging in front of him and actually having the surgery first, even though he started the process first. So I had the surgery about 2006, and then he had it not too long after that. So, yeah, for a good stretch of years, we did. We were doing really well. The weight loss was going really well. Um, I had nothing to complain about. And then probably somewhere at least for me, I'm not really sure when Dad really started having his issues or when it really started coming to light that we were realizing he was having issues. And I don't quite remember if he was first or if I was first, but I know mine started about 2009, 2010. I just didn't ever want to eat. I never had my head around food. I just never thought, it would almost turn into like an anorexic mentality. I could look at myself and still think I looked like 250 pounds, which is what I started at pre-surgery when I was, sitting at about 110, but that's just not what I was seeing. So, this surgery, regardless of what anybody will tell you, will mess with your head more than you will ever realize, psychologically.
So sorry, I want to make sure that everybody heard this, because you sort of passed over it a little bit, is that you went from 250 pounds to 110. That is, and how tall are you? You're my height.
I'm 5'4".
Okay.
5'4", 5'5".
Yeah, I'm 5'3".
But the 110, the 110 wasn't even my lowest weight. That's where it got scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started developing, and then right in that time, I started developing pains in my stomach. I was just like always in pain. Doctor after doctor could not figure out why I was in pain all the time. They couldn't figure out where this pain was coming from. And unfortunately, that was around the time where the answer to pain was Vicodin.
Mm-hmm.
So about 2010 is when that started. It was just kind of, we can't figure out what it is, so let's just mask the pain until we can figure out what it is. And that really took me down a very dangerous road.
Mm-hmm.
When I was taking them, I really didn't want to eat, because you have that feeling of, it's almost like, we're all drinkers. You get to a certain point and you want to keep drinking. If you eat, that's gonna take away from what you've been drinking and what you're feeling. So, of course, that just added to I never wanted to eat because it always made me feel so good. And then it got to a point where that's just all I was doing, mm-hmm. is basically just taking pills after pills. And then Dad started getting really sick.
Can I interrupt you one more time? I'm sorry.
No.
Because when I interrupted you a few minutes ago, you were talking about the psychology of this, and I want to also make sure that we don't just sheer over that as well. Because if there was more that you wanted to say about that, I want you to, because I think that's really, really important.
The only thing I would say about that is now I don't know how it is now, but when we had it, we did have to go through a psychological exam.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a sane person, which for the most part I am, it's really nothing. It was talk to a counselor for a half hour and do a test on a computer, answer some questions that were like 100 questions, basically asking, are you suicidal? I mean, no, I'm not. I at this point, I'm heavy, but I'm a perfectly happy person. I have nothing wrong with me too bad physically, and mentally I have all my faculties. So, yeah, of course I'm going to pass this test. Afterwards, and it's when it starts messing with your psyche, as far as having the procedure done, there wasn't a lot of support. There wasn't, as a matter of fact, and I know this kind of jumps into after things got better, but the doctor I was seeing actually sent me a letter at one point and dropped me as a patient. I mean, that was they were just, okay, we're done with you. So that's,
wow.
That was a hard hit to take too, you know, because I was really struggling. I was going through a lot of things and I needed some help, and that was their answer, was to tell me that there was nothing more that they were going to do for me.
That's disgusting. Are you willing to, and I don't know if he's still practicing, is this something that you want to say his name?
I don't think he's still practicing. He was out of Grand Rapids. To be honest, Nick, I don't even know if I could remember it. It would take me a minute to have to remember his name.
There are a lot of things about him that really frustrate me that we'll get into also, but I don't know that I remembered you telling me that he just dropped you in your time of need.
Yeah.
That's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it, and by a letter in the mail. So, yeah, we're into about 2010. I'm pretty heavily into the medication. Dad starts to go downhill. So I'm doing my best, you know, to help Mom. I'm doing my best to support Dad. He spent a lot of time in the hospital, in and out. And then, not to really gloss over his struggles, but then we ended up losing him in August of, I want to say 2011. Mom's probably going to yell at me because it could be 12. I'm pretty sure it was 2011.
Don't yell,
yeah. So when he went, things got really dark for me. And I was already on a path to pretty much self-destruction. So now my weight's down to about 95 pounds. Jeez. I think that's where I bottomed out.
Yeah.
And I was just living on painkillers. And I was still having these terrible pains in my stomach, to the point where Allison was still living at home. I remember one morning calling into her just sobbing because it hurt so bad. An ambulance came and got me. It was just kind of this perpetual, you know, I couldn't do anything because my stomach hurt so bad. And then they finally figured out, when I went to I had a follow-up with the doctor who did the gastric bypass. The day my mom took me in there, and I remember it was December 19th of 2011. And that was the day he admitted me back into the hospital because I had 4 ulcers in a stomach the size of a walnut. So that was attributing to where a lot of my pain was coming from. But he also saw that I was basically just emaciated. Like, there was, if he didn't step in at that point, then I was just going to end up next to my dad. I mean, there was just no other outcome at that time. So that day he checked me into the hospital. I get a little hazy on this part because it was a long stint, but he did surgery, I think the day after, to basically what I was told going into surgery was, we're going to go in and fix those ulcers. That's what's going to happen. And so I went into that surgery, said goodbye to my family because I wasn't sure if I was coming back out. And when I did, and they were able to talk to me, and they had put me in ICU, they had said, not only did we fix the ulcers, we put your stomach back together. And we also had to put a feeding tube in. So for a while, that's all you're really going to eat through is this tube in your stomach. And that's what I did. I spent, I was in the hospital. I was in there longer because I ended up developing pneumonia, and then I ended up developing a blood clot, and so I ended up in ICU. I know it was really scary for Greg because all he got was phone calls from the hospital saying, we've got to take her. We don't know if you're going to see her again. I mean, it was just kind of a terror all through through everybody. I think I got a lot of visitors in Grand Rapids thinking that was the last time that they were going to be able to see me. So, luckily I came out of that. I spent Christmas in ICU. I was not discharged from there until after it was like first week of January, I think I was able to come home.
So how long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital from December 19th until like January 6th, 7th, somewhere in there, like within that first week or two of January.
Okay.
So I did a good amount in there, and most of it was in the intensive care unit because they were still trying to treat the pneumonia and they were still trying to treat the blood clots. And I will tell you something that I did. This is where my brain, that I don't even know if I've told anybody this, but
now you're telling the world. So go.
Yeah, but this is where my head was when I was in the throes of being very doped up in ICU and also being an addict at this time. That I had my cell phone in intensive care unit, and I made a call to my shoulder surgeon to tell them I needed pain medication. That was rock bottom. I mean, that's as bad as it can get. When you're in an ICU unit, but you're reaching out to a doctor who did surgery on your shoulder to try to get, have a prescription waiting there for you for when you are dismissed from the hospital. Yeah. Not thinking clearly, of course. Of course, I'm still on so many things in the hospital that I can't even believe I remember that, but I think I go back to that because that was just kind of the moment in my life when I said, wow, I mean, that's bad. That's really bad. So, I get home, I'm on a feeding tube. I basically eat through an IV that's being right into my feeding tube, into my stomach. Started out just at night, but I still didn't have the desire to eat. So all my follow-ups, finally, the doctor said, you're going to have to go 24 hours on this thing. There's nothing we can do for you till you can tolerate eating or, get out of this, whatever is going on, and start eating. 24 hours of carrying an IV tube around was probably one of the worst things you've ever had to do.
Yeah.
It's degrading. It's just makes you feel a lot of ways helpless. I went through a lot of different things. And then of course, I was still came out of a major surgery, so I still had pain medication, but they were trying to control it as much as they could. But again, we're still in this era of before they realized what big of a problem this was. And also because Dad had died, and then a few months after that, we had lost his brother, And then 10 months to the day of Dad dying, we lost Grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So I also really enjoyed not having to feel that pain either. You know, it dulled all the senses.
Yeah.
So it was kind of it was my crutch. It wasn't a healthy crutch, and it was a crutch that almost killed me, but that was the way I dealt with it, and I know, of course, that's not the way to deal with life, but that's what I did. I'm lucky I made it. I was headed down a bad path, and then I was missing a lot of my children's lives. You know, Allison was 16. She needed me, and all I did for months was lay on a couch and watch TV. It was just not. It was not a good place to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she was a softball pitcher for her high school, and they sent them to Florida every year for spring training, and I decided that I thought I would like to make the trip. So I ended up being able to attend that trip with Allison. When I was on that trip, I don't remember, I was still on the feeding tube. I still had to do it 24 hours. I had to carry all those supplies with me to Florida to still be able to do that, to keep my nutrition in. And my tube fell out.
Mm.
It just pulled right out of my stomach. I'm not sure, I'm not sure what happened that pulled it out. I don't remember. But all I remember is hooking it up to eat, or, you know, that's how I eat. I ate, so yeah, I hooked it up to eat, and it was just leaking right out. I was like, I couldn't understand why it was all so wet, and yeah, the tube came out, and I called the doctor, and he said, you have to get to ER right now and have that put back in. And I said, I'm in Florida. I'm not gonna have my family. I'm here with my daughter and her softball team. I'm not gonna have somebody run me to ER to have this put in. And I had called Greg, and Greg has always been the tough voice of reason in my mind. He you know, he keeps it real. He doesn't pull any punches.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, this is where you need to make your decision then, Melissa. He said, this is it. This is, you're going to eat, or this is it. And from then, I think that's when my mindset started to change. And I don't know what flipped that script. I don't know if it was him on the phone just being like, you know, enough is enough, and we've got to, you know, we got to quit band-aiding this, and we've got to progress this, because this is no way for all of us to live. And that's what I did. As a matter of fact, when I left Florida, I left all of those supplies in that hotel room, and I never looked back.
Wow, good for you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I still have, you know, I still deal with, to this day, I deal with, you know, I still deal with things from it. I still get mystery pains in my stomach that they can't ever figure out, and probably never will.
Mm-hmm.
Probably by this time, there's so much scar tissue in there that it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I would imagine you're just full of adhesions.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know, they when they do, in the procedure, to be specific, the procedure I had, it was called the Roux-en-Y, and so that's when they take a chunk of your stomach and they make it smaller, and then they cut out about a foot of your lower intestines, and then I don't want to say the name of it, the scientific, because I'll screw it all up, but it's the little hole that, you know, obviously it comes through here and where your food passes through to go into your stomach, and they shrink that down, they make it really small.
Yep.
So when they pull my stomach back together, and they widen that opening back up, but you can't put back a foot of intestines that's been taken out. So I'm just forever going to be plagued with some sort of digestive issues. Probably my biggest one right now is heartburn. I get heartburn so bad that some days, if I miss my medication, it's debilitating. It makes me so sick. That's how bad the heartburn gets. People say they have heartburn, and I say, no, I mean, I'm not going to tell you don't have heartburn, but you've never had heartburn like I have heartburn. So, yeah, it really stinks. I mean, that's something that will medicate for the rest of my life. In the process of all my malnutrition, I was losing my hair. My body was trying to pull nutrition from everywhere, so it was pulling from my teeth. So I think I mentioned to you, I'm still dealing with a lot of dental issues from that. I have teeth that will just randomly break because they're just still so weak. Because once you lose that, that enamel in those in that types of things in your mouth, you're never going to get them back. So it's just a matter of how far are we going to go to fix them and patch them. And I'm missing at least 11 that have just broken and that I've had to have pulled out. So
let me say something real quick, and don't be upset with me for saying this, but
no,
in your situation, it is much more difficult to get the strength of your teeth back and the enamel back, but you can. This is something that I don't know that dentistry has told us that we have to fill and pull and cover and all of these things. Yes, due to nutrient deficiencies, due to toxicities, all of these things. And I just want to make sure people understand that whatever situation they're in, whether it's yours, whether it's any other situation where they have unhealthy teeth or just have cavities, and whatever the case may be, we can reverse cavities. We can heal bones, we can heal cavities, we can heal our teeth. All of these things can heal. But yes, when you are as malnourished as you were and probably still are due to all of the procedures and the stuff that they did, and anybody who's malnourished and has their toxic bucket has just overflowed essentially, and you've had a lot of toxicity with the surgeries, with so much of what you went through, that will certainly make teeth break. I feel like I have to clarify that.
And that's good to hear, because as a matter of fact, I just went to the dentist yesterday for my cleaning, and he said every one of my bottom teeth that I have left, because I wear a partial on my bottom, but the permanent ones that are still there, he wants an hour and 40 minutes for me to sit in a chair to repair every single one of them that are starting to get too soft. That he said they're not quite decay yet, but they're getting soft. They're getting there. We got to do something. And I know that. I can feel them. Obviously it's when my mouth is changing. That in my two, and I should also mention my two front teeth are not real. So yeah, I mean, I think that I don't want to say dental issues are the hardest thing, because I've been through a lot, and that's definitely not the hardest thing I've been dealing with. But now, in the now, I hate dealing with that, and I've really struggled, especially with I guess I struggle also with the price of dentistry, and it's not that I struggle for money. I struggle if it's worth keeping and just keep patching. You know what I mean? I'm really on the fence about what to do with my mouth, and I don't I just have not been able to make any decisions on that yet. But again, when I walked out of the dentist yesterday and he said that, I need an hour, 40 minutes to fix every one of your bottom teeth, I was just, it was almost like a defeated, like I came home to Greg and I'm like, this is what they said and this is what they said. And, I'm tired. I'm tired of patching things. I'm tired of, just getting by. I'm getting to where I just need more permanent fixes in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, you have a nutritionist for a cousin.
I know. And I know I had called you at one time when I was going through some of my, I was on the other end of surgery where they had put everything, I was a few months out. And they wanted me to take a medication that really scared me because they pointed out that one of the side effects of this medication was basically not Parkinson's disease, but all the things that go with Parkinson's disease, and it was all irreversible. And I called you because at that point I was kind of panicked, and I think that was also right around the time I had gotten a letter from my doctor that said we're no longer going to see you as a patient, and so I was kind of flailing, and reached out to you about the medication they suggested, the side effects that they said that I could potentially have that wouldn't be reversed, and because the last thing I need now is to have Parkinson's disease symptoms. And we talked. We talked, and you gave me some options, and I know I went through some of your stuff, and I did take, and it did help. It got me through that, so I didn't have to take the prescribed medications, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, I'm always grateful that I can always call you or send you a message if I have questions, because you're very knowledgeable about what's going on and very in tune with your body. So I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it. And then I sit here today and I'm back at about 200 pounds, and I'm thinking, man, did I do all that for nothing? Because I'm still almost get to where I started from.
So hard. So let me back up real quick just a little bit, because I wasn't looking for, all I wanted to say was, there are things that we can do that are fairly simple for your teeth and for your mouth that I think can have great benefits. So let's just make sure we talk about it. And so I get where you're coming from, because I feel like, with the amount of nutrient deficiency, and that's one of the biggest things that I really want to talk about here at this point, is in the experiences that I've had with you, with your dad, which those were my first two experiences, and then with clients that I've had since. These stories are very, very similar. Now, of course, we lost your dad, which I want to hit on that. So many things I want to hit on right now. My brain's all over the place. But let me finish what I was going to say. Is I see so often that people are suffering with a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and there is, your dad, he was a cook, right? And that was his world, and his life was cooking good food and cooking for the family and doing Thanksgivings and Christmas and this kind of thing. And I think if you would agree, and I get a lot of this from when my mom was still around, these are a lot of things that she would tell me, but that was sort of added to his depression and frustration, that he essentially couldn't cook and couldn't eat what he cooked and all of that anymore. Is that correct?
Yeah, because he got, he got into, I would have to say the same. I mean, we were very parallel about how things went, and it got to a point where we just stopped eating, and and we couldn't get him to eat anything. And yeah, and he was a mess sergeant in the National Guard. He was used to cooking for hundreds of people and loved to do it. When he cooked for us, it was like he didn't know how to downscale it, so he was always cooking for our army when there was 6 of us. But yeah, that really did take a lot from him as well. Yeah.
So going back to the one of the other thoughts that I had, but just adding putting fuel on the fire essentially is when you go into these procedures and they're taking parts of you out. I don't think I realized that they took a full foot of your intestine out. I mean, I get that there are things that they have to do to make it work, but for the love of Pete, you start taking things out, the body's not going to function the same. And it's probably not going to function as well.
Well, yeah, and I think within the first year of the bypass surgery, my gallbladder went out, and they said that is a classic byproduct of having this. So within a year, I was back in having my gallbladder removed because that was causing me problems. So then it just sends you down this path of then what's it gonna affect next? So you just don't take all that in when you make these decisions to do this.
Were you told? Do you remember being told?
No.
You weren't told.
I don't remember being told that pre-surgery. When I started having issues and they started looking at my gallbladder and realized I had gastric bypass, they were like, yes, of course, this 95% of the time this happens.
Unreal.
So,
Yeah, just so frustrating. One of my biggest frustrations. So obviously, my frustrations don't compare with yours. But I at the time when you had this surgery, I was selling surgical devices, and I was selling surgical devices that are laparoscopic devices. And so when I say that, they're called trocars. They're the instruments that you put in the gut to put the instruments in and through. And so at the time, I was seeing lots of GI surgeries, laparoscopic GI surgeries, all of these bypasses, these things that they're doing. The doctor that you went to, and this is during a time where this should have been the way it was done. He essentially cut you from your pubic bone to your sternum. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep.
I was floored at that.
Yeah, and then that is also how he put me back together. So it was, I have very major scarring on my abdomen, and also I don't want to say looks like a hole, but it's a very, very deep indentation of where my feeding tube was. And those will always be there. I mean, I joke sometimes that if you need to find a map that you can look at my stomach, because there's lines everywhere, and it just looks like a road map. So
yeah, and so
it was that, and that was very hard to, and that's very hard to recover from. When they cut your abdominal, your whole abdomen from stem to stern, that's not something you just bounce right back out of.
Well, no. You're cutting muscles. You're cutting all of these things that have a really tough time coming back together. Then on top of that, when we're talking about these adhesions, for those, most probably everybody knows what an adhesion is, but what happens when you go in, it's going to happen with laparoscopic procedures, open procedures like you had, but, essentially that blood gets in there and it creates scar tissue. And so you have organs that stick together. You have all this fascia that can stick together. You have, so it can make it really difficult to move and for your organs to move, and they get bound, and it's really difficult. Like I said, I'm grateful to have had that experience in the OR because I've seen all of this. I've seen the adhesions. I've seen the craziness that can happen with these surgeries, and to think that it's okay when we had the, and I'm not a physician, I'm not a surgeon, and so he may well have had a reason for it. I don't understand what it is, but it's not also not my place. It still frustrates the hell out of me though, that you do an open procedure like that when it probably likely could have been done as a laparoscopic procedure, at least the first one, maybe not the second one because of all that was going on, I don't know. But that first one, and if I remember correctly, you told me that he said, well, this is just the way that I do it. And he did not want to learn how to do it laparoscopically, yes?
I believe that is correct from the best of my memory, because my dad actually had, his partner did my dad's surgery, and my dad's surgery was done the same way, so it was kind of that's how the whole practice dealt with it, and it wasn't just the one doctor, but it was the 2 or 3 that were in there.
Yeah.
And at the time, I mean, 2006, and I know this has started, that's about, this was a fairly new, thing coming around, and the new fad, and, whatever it was. I don't know what the laparoscopic options were at that time. I don't know any of that. I wasn't educated enough in that. I will say, when you talked about the lesions and things like that, I got pneumonia in June, maybe 2015, 16, somewhere in there. And I went into a ready care, and they did a chest x-ray. And they came out of that chest x-ray, and they said, well, we saw something really weird on your x-ray. And I said, you did? And she goes, yeah, have you had any recent surgeries? And I said, well, nothing recent, but I've had gastric bypass, and then I've had it reversed, and gave them the years and the history on that. And she says, well, did they leave something in there?
Stop it.
And I said, what are you talking about? She said, we picked up something on the x-ray, and we don't know what it is. And I said, I'm going to need a copy of that x-ray. And she said, well, it's our property. And I said, no, it's not. No, it's not. No.
Unreal.
No, it absolutely is not. So I did take the x-ray. And I did have it looked at by another doctor. They were unsure what it was, so I took it to another doctor, and he had said, I don't think they left anything in there. I think it is a massive scar tissue. He goes, but the only way we're going to find out is to open you back up and create more scar tissue. And if it's not bothering you, then let's leave it alone. And then I agreed, because he was my primary care. He was my primary care that has taken care of me through this entire disaster. I keep telling him if he retires, because he's kind of getting that age that he can't ever stop seeing me, like he still has to come in. Because he saw me through, pre-gastric bypass, the gastric bypass, the aftermath of the bypass, the addiction, he's always been the one that's been my cheerleader and on my side. And I don't know if I would have made it without him. And he keeps a very close eye on me. As a matter of fact, I went through, I want to say about 2 years where he said, I'm not going to charge you an office call. And this is not about money. But the only thing you're going to come in and do is stand on a scale for me once a month, because I want to know that you are not going backwards, that you're going forwards. And that was my life. Once a month, I had to make a doctor's appointment to go in and get in front of him and step on a scale.
Wow. Very cool. What a good man.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a very good man. He's a very good man.
Good. What kind of support, besides this doctor, but what kind of support expectation did you get from your doctors who performed the surgery post-surgery?
None.
None.
None. No. As a matter of fact, there had been a couple of times where I was having, I think that's kind of when the pain issues started, and I had called over to the office, and actually his nurse practitioner was not a very nice lady, and I kind of went a couple rounds with her, but it was almost like she stood between me getting the help and I needed from him. Like it was like his job was done. He did what he was brought on board to do, and anything outside of that, I just needed to figure it out and find my own help and deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I did go to therapy for a while, especially when the addiction was really bad and I was trying to come out of that. I'm actually considering going back into therapy. I don't think that's ever a bad or negative thing a person can do.
I think everybody
especially
should do it.
with the job. Yeah, the job I do is very emotionally draining.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of things a lot of people shouldn't see, and it can really wear on you. So I've really been kicking around the fact. I mean, that's just something that I have to start dealing with again to get my. I have to reset my brain at this point. I'm like, this year I'm 50 years old. I'm hope to God and I hope my kids are watching this. I want grandbabies soon.
All right, you guys.
I know. I want to be here and I want to be present for that. I know I talked to you too when you were here for the wedding that I have a hip issue. My hip is falling apart. I have a condition called hip dysplasia. I don't know if that has any connection to my history. They say it's hereditary, but I've talked to Mom. We can't trace any family heredity with us. So I don't know if this is another byproduct of what I put my body through.
It almost has to be, at least in part. I mean, if you struggle with nutrient deficiencies, if your body's not getting what it needs, if it's going through all of the stress and the strain that it's going through, how could it not be? Now, maybe it would have happened anyway, and maybe to a lesser extent. Who knows? We can't sit here and play the guessing game. But so, I mean, the body does not have the ability to do what it's meant to do because of what you've been through. So it has to be, I think.
I mean, I would think in part because I can't, when I tell the doctors, there was no injury. I have not had any injury to it. I kind of just woke up one day and it was kind of bothering me. It just progressed and progressed and progressed and progressed to the point where I've seen 3 doctors and I was pushing for a replacement because that's how bad my pain can get. And of course, my history with pain medications, I can't, really do that. So I do have a doctor that does epidurals. But any doctor that will replace it are, you're 50 years old. We're not giving you a hip replacement. And so that's just another cross I'm going to have to bear until I can figure out how that's going to get fixed.
So what age are you supposed to be to have hip replacement surgery?
I had 2 doctors tell me that it wouldn't even be thought about until I was 60. So I got another 10 years of this.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to make sure we've got about 6 minutes left. I want to make sure, that you have said everything that you want to say, but I also want to make sure that that there's a real understanding out there for those, kind of how I started the show is, I feel like, this is a procedure that is pumped up to be the end all be all. I don't really know if that's the case, but that's how I feel. I've got a bunch of studies. I was putting my notes together, and there are these studies showing, that bariatric surgery can, it can decrease comorbidities. It can, all of these things. But then it showed that, where's my numbers? Showed that where'd it go? Liver, people who died of chronic liver disease was 83% higher in those who had bariatric surgery. They don't know why, but 83%, that's not a small number.
No, it's not. And the thing that also bothers me, and this I didn't find out until recently, but my husband works with a gentleman who had just went to the doctor and came home, and he said, "You're never going to believe that." His doctors just said he wanted him to have it. I mean, was advocating, and he was really having no other health issues other than that he's overweight, and it wasn't. I mean, that was his go-to answer. It wasn't let's try this or let's try that, or because Greg's we need to get Greg's weight under control either, and he certainly isn't going to go have this after everything I've gone through. And so I can't. I was just kind of floored that was the solution right out of the gate, and I think that bothered me a lot too. And I also want to say that I do know a lot of people also that have had it since I've had it, and they have told me about it, and I know that they get a little gun shy about it, and I don't stand on a soapbox about it.
Right.
I'm as supportive as I can be. I'm not. I can give you my experience, but I'm not an expert. I don't know percentages. I don't know numbers. I can tell you, people that are close to me, what I went through, and if this is the decision you're going to make, I will support you. I just can't support this decision. And I mean, I don't know how that makes them feel, but I can't pretend either. I can't pretend that when I see them struggling, I have one person in particular right now that I see going down the exact same way. And after everything I went through, this person is pretty close that this is the way she's choosing. I just don't. I don't understand people, I guess. Everybody's mentality is different, and I know what mine is. And, again, I'm not an expert, and I don't know all these percentages, but on my experience, again, I'll support you, and if you've got something going wrong, I will do my best to support that. But if you're going to come to me pre-surgery and tell me this is your decision, I'm not going to advocate for it. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it took my dad away from me. It damn near took me away from my children and my family. My mom almost lost two of us within a year. I don't want to do that to her,
Yeah. It's so hard, and I think you're right when people need to make their own decisions, and I think that's good, but be informed. And to me, sort of outside looking in my own, outside experience, find the support you need post-surgery, mental, emotional, and physical. Here's what I know. There are things that we can do as practitioners to help you and probably keep you from losing your gallbladder. Right? Help you keep your nutrients in a good place, help you not lose muscle mass. It's a big thing, is losing muscle mass. You're not, when you go through this procedure, it's not that you're just eating less. So your body doesn't function the way that it's supposed to. Things are taken away. That foot of intestine has a place. It has a job, and that job is no longer there. And to think that you have all of these, however many feet of intestines that we have, and you can just take some of it out, is crazy and limited in the understanding that the body is created as it's created for a reason and a purpose. This includes tonsils, this includes gallbladder, this includes appendix, this includes all of the things in our body that so many will come to you and say, you don't really need it, let's just get rid of it. Or, it's giving you a hard time, let's just take it out. And then though, now I'm gonna get on the soapbox, or I'm already on my soapbox, but there's no support post-surgery. For gallbladder removal, they don't tell you to go take digestive enzymes. They don't tell you to take lipase. They don't tell you that you need to support your gallbladder even though it's not there anymore because it has a job. They don't tell you what to do when you lose your appendix, and they don't tell you what to do when they take out all your stomach except for a walnut size. And how are you expected to do anything with that? And I think I understand, and I believe this is correct, that over time it's going to stretch a little bit. I assume it will, but if then it's full of ulcers, or whatever the case may be, it just makes no sense in the world. And so, sorry, it makes no sense in the world to not support that and not send somebody to a nutritionist or a dietitian or whoever it is that can give support post-surgery, but to just then, I don't know, I was going to say something and then I lost it, but because my mind's going in all of these different places, but it just makes no sense. If you're going to do the procedure, if you're going to do any procedure, especially if it's removing pieces and parts, get support afterwards. Understand what your body now needs to replace what's missing, because it will create deficiencies, it will create problems, it may not be 6 months down the road, but 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. If you're suffering from anxiety you've never suffered from before, if you're suffering from hip issues, all of these things that may seem like they're not related, the likelihood is pretty high that they are, if the body's not functioning properly.
And I was also told after I had it that statistically you're more likely also to become an alcoholic after the surgery.
Yeah, well, that suicide rates are higher. So there's, there is, when I was reading these studies, they were promoting, they're saying, yes, all of these comorbidities go down, diabetes goes down, heart, cardiovascular issues go down, go down the list of these metabolic issues is the word I'm looking for, but these metabolic issues that, yes, if you lose the weight and you start to decrease your inflammation and all of these things that play a role in, and I know one of the things that I was going to say, but play a role in this process, sure, those things are going to go down as the weight starts to go down, but the inflammation is still probably going to go up, which means your anxiety is going to go up, then you're losing nutrients, and then all of these other things that just replace that. So you've got suicide rates that go up, chronic liver disease, whether alcohol or non-alcohol. What else is happening? They're not talking about this dumping syndrome that can happen. I don't know if that's something that you experienced.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
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 That's a really tough thing to deal with as well. And then the mental and emotional issues. It's mind blowing to me that there's such a lack of support post procedure. So anyway.
Yes, certainly back then there was. I don't know if that's changed within, the new decade and all that, but I'm obviously not as in touch with all that as I used to be. But yeah, back then there was no. I mean, again, I got a letter from a doctor that said, all right, well, we're done.
Yeah.
So what do I do now? What do I do now? I mean, that I walked around and asked myself that question for the whole rest of the day. What do I do now?
Yeah. I just find that to be, again, just overtly disgusting. Part of the problem too, though, is I believe. And are you okay on time? So I'm running over a little bit, but I think it's important, and there's nobody coming.
I'm good on time.
Okay.
I can sit here and talk to you all day.
But something, you know, I talk about a lot, and it's not necessarily the fault of physicians, it's the fault of mainstream medicine, but there is, you know, there's no nutrition in their background. There's no nutrition in their studies, in their schoolwork, in their residencies. You know, there's none of this. They don't understand food. They don't understand literally, which is, I find, mind-blowing, but they don't understand, and this is not a blanket statement. This is, I mean, it is kind of a general statement, but it doesn't mean it's everybody. But the lack of training and understanding how food affects the body and how food's going to affect recovery and how taking things out is going to affect the body. The lack of training in this, I think, is so much of what's playing a role in all of these negative outcomes, because just understanding basic biochemistry should sort of, that light bulb should go off and say, oh, maybe we need to put you on a good multivitamin that breaks down in the mucosa in the mouth instead of in the gut. Right? Let's think about things like that. Let's think about how we can actually get the nutrients in your body, and that bypass the gut, so we don't have to mess with that, and you're still in a good place. Let's think about, you know, filling you with amino acids that are missing. So many of these basic things, but to me they're basic. But when they're not trained, when you're trained to diagnose a symptom, which is not fixing a symptom, it's diagnosing a symptom and then covering it up. You know, that's just kind of where you stop, and then they drop you because they're like, I don't know what else to do, and then
right,
they just don't have any answers for you. So like, well, I don't know, you got to go figure it out, which is really frustrating. But it's also why I have a job, right? That's my job,
right,
is to figure out what's going on and why. You know,
right. And they had always pushed, when they pushed protein at that time, it was protein, like the protein shakes and the protein drinks. I don't know why I couldn't tolerate them, but I couldn't, and they were the worst things. And
protein has come a long way outside of animal protein.
Yeah, and the two things when I did try to eat that really, really bothered me were chicken and bread, and I could, because they would always get stuck in that shrunken hole.
Yeah.
So it would never pass through. So I would always end up having to bring it back up, because that's the only way it was going. It wasn't going anywhere else, and it would just sit there, and it hurt, like heart attack hurt, and you have to get it out. So when you're not getting any of that, but you can't tolerate, you know, what they're telling you to do, but they're giving you no other options, then what?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Mm-hmm. This isn't what I do for a living. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the problem. They don't either. And they're like, oh, so be on your way. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, and it's sad. And oh man, there were other things that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like I should probably not. Maybe we'll do it again. You know, I think I just want to say real quick that I feel like a lot of people believe that this is their last source, their last answer. You know, they go through, and what I know is weight loss is hard. It can be really difficult, but it's so important to understand that sometimes it's not just the willpower. So often there's so much more to it. Once you start to go into a little bit of a spiral, you've got hormones that are out of balance. You've got your leptin and ghrelin, which are your hunger and satiety hormones that are out of balance. And then you know, potentially there's infection. There are all of these things that can be happening that create cravings, that create the lack of willpower. It's not you. It's not something that's wrong with you. There's more to it. And find somebody to help you that's going to help you dig through those types of things. Run labs on your gut, run labs on your hormones, run as many labs as you can find somebody, and I'm going to say find somebody like me because this is what I do, but there are others who do what I do. That's what we do in functional nutrition, is we look to dig for the root cause. We want to understand the underlying problems of what's going on, why it's happening, how we can address the root cause or the multiple root causes, and then allow the body to do the rest, right? And so it's try to take a step back. If this is where you are, or if this is what you're considering, take a step back and see if you can do more digging. Don't just rely on trying to lose weight, and don't just rely on those who tell you just eat less and exercise more, because it's a bunch of it's a crock of shit, and it really frustrates me that people say that. Sometimes it's the case, and sometimes there's a lot more going on that needs to be addressed, and that can help people get past that point where maybe that it's no longer a consideration. Then if you have already gone through it, find somebody to help you understand what your body needs now. Don't allow yourself to get to this point to where you're having to deal with these things that Missy is dealing with, whether it's GI, whether it's teeth, whether it's bones and joints and all of these things, because it probably will happen if you don't support your body and all the things that it needs after such an extreme procedure. So.
Yeah, and please, yeah. Please don't think that this is the easy way. And I think that's where everybody goes, that this is the easy way to lose the weight and better my other health issues. But like, I'm with you. You've got clients, I've got family and friends that I see that in the end, it's not easy. It's the farthest from easiest that you'll ever do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I have to be done. For us to be done. I think that this was really so informative, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share, because it's hard stuff to share. I mean, you went through a lot, and it's really hard, but this is stuff that people need to know. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'm very glad to do it for you. And it's it's a part of my life now. And I had said for a while, especially after Dad passed, that if I had ever got the opportunity to speak out, I would. And you gave me that. So when you asked me to do this, I was flattered. Of course I'm going to do it. Again, I can't promote having this procedure done when, I'd rather be overweight and happy instead of not being here for my children and my family. Yeah. So.
Cool. Well, I love you, and thank you.
I love you. Thank you.
And we'll do it again. I think it's important. This is important enough where we could do the same show again, and have other things to talk about, but reach more people. So let's plan on that. We'll do it again.
100%. You let me know anytime.
Cool. So thank you all for joining. I know we ran over time. I don't think I've ever run this far over time, but I think that it was necessary. So appreciate you. You can always find me, tastelifenutrition.com. You can fill out the free assessment that I have that will lead you straight to me, and we'll talk a little bit about your needs, your goals, and if there's something that I can do to help, or if there's somebody I know who might be able to help you better. Also, make sure that I am letting everybody know we are right on the verge of launching Soulful Conception. So this is purposeful living for creating a healthy body, a healthy pregnancy, and a healthy baby. This is important for today, and it's important for our future. And make sure that you check that out. Reach out to me. Happy to chat more about it. It's good stuff. Really good stuff. I have an amazing lineup of guest experts who are going to help guide anybody who's interested through all of the things that we need to do in order to prepare for conception, whether you're early in the process or if you're going through IVF. It's important to have all of the tools that you possibly can to create that healthy baby. So what else? Taste Life Nutrition, all the social media. Find us here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on the amazing KUHSdenver.com. And we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Stay there, Missy. Hold on.
All right.